Mike McDaniel is officially the Chargers offensive coordinator, and now the question becomes, could he try to bring his star wide receiver Tyreek Hill from the Dolphins?
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, the Miami Dolphins are in a very bad cap situation, and one of the ways they can get themselves out of that is by finding a way to find a partner for Tyreek Hill. Are the Chargers potentially that partner? We'll talk about that. And the big fish, the best free agent on the market at the center position is Tyler Linderbaum, and I absolutely want the Chargers to put on a full court press to make sure they bring him in and get that deal done. And will this be a one and done for new Chargers offensive coordinator Mike McDaniel?
We can only cross our fingers and hope that it's not. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. David, we made it through a night without any major breaking news, meaning that Buy or Sell Tuesday, which has now become Buy or Sell Friday, is in full effect, and we'll be able to turn it over to the everydayers. And thank you as always for making us your first listen. And we have a bunch of great buy or sells to get into today. We'll probably have to repurpose some next week just because we had so many throughout the week, and thank you all for doing that. But let's get to this one, which is, I know, a thought on many Chargers fans' minds right now, which is this from Roberto Flores, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers make a move for Tyreek Hill. I know we've had this conversation before, David, but now you have the obvious connection. Like, Tyreek Hill is the straw that stirred the drink in Miami with that offense. Is it possible that the Chargers could go get that star receiver?
Is it possible? Yeah, I would say it is possible. Should they do it? No, absolutely not. And there's a litany of reasons why they should not do that. Number one, he's coming off of a major injury where he dislocated his knee and tore multiple ligaments in his knee, including his ACL. Also, he's 32 years old. And he's going into his age 32 season for this upcoming 2026-2027 season. So that two big reasons right there. Third thing, the contract. It is a big situation. It's a big issue. And yeah, the Miami Dolphins are way over the cap right now, and they have to make some moves. But if the Dolphins cut him pre-June 1, they're going to eat $28.2 million in cap space. That will save them $22.8 million, but that is a lot of money to have on the books to have to, obviously spread out and wait for that to fall off. And then obviously the last thing is the off the field issues are just too much for me. I can't deal with it. It's just not something that I want the Chargers to entertain. Say what you want about that. Obviously on the field, when the guy is healthy, he's one of the more dynamic players in the league. But even with that being said, that doesn't mean much to me because the character is something that's of major concern, and I just don't think the Chargers should have anything to do with that.
Yeah, I think it's a hard pass for me. I'm totally selling the Chargers, making a move for Tyreek Hill. Like you said, he's under contract, so you'd have to trade for him. I'm not interested in that at all. Chargers would have to take on his base salary, which is $29 million for this season. Not interested in that. And even if they cut him, because if they did cut him post June 1st, you could save $35 million. I still don't want him, right? I mean, to your point, major knee injury, which I think you have to wonder if he's even going to be ready for the start of the season, which I think has to at least be in jeopardy with how serious it is. Even if he is, how do you know he's still that guy? I mean, the one thing, like, he's more than just a speedy receiver, right? Because we see tons of speed-only receivers that don't end up working out in the NFL. He brings a lot more to the table to that. But a major part of his game is the speed. Is that speed still going to be there? Will he have full trust in his leg in 2026? Hard to say. You might be doing this as a move for 2027 when he's going to be a free agent anyways. Yeah, I mean, Also, terrible human being from every report out there, right? I mean, from things he's been convicted of and all of the settled things that are out there as well. Go and Google it. But yeah, I'd rather not have to root for this dude. Not I don't want to even have those issues to begin with, and I just also don't think he even ended on the greatest of terms with Mike McDaniel with all the stuff he was putting out on social media towards the end of that. So keep that cancer away from the Chargers locker room. It'll be totally fine with me. But let's get to this one from Matthew Dahl, who says, buy or sell, Ladd McConkey will remind us fans why he is our number one receiver and will feast in this offense this year. This is something we'll get a little more into later in the offseason too. But David, I think this is a very big buy for me.
Oh yeah, no question about it. It's a massive buy for me. I think obviously you look at who the number one target was in 2023 when they had the number one overall offense. That was the guy we just got done talking about, Tyreek Hill, who had 119 receptions for almost 1,800 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns. He knew that he was a rare talent, and I'm not sitting here saying that Ladd McConkey is Tyreek Hill. They're two different players, and they do things different ways, but what Ladd McConkey does do exceptionally well is he uses his beautiful route running and his quickness to get open very quickly. And we know that Mike McDaniel is going to build in a lot of those quick passing concepts, which I think Ladd McConkey is going to absolutely eat alive opposing defenses.
And I think the thing with Ladd is like pretty much everything he's done up until this point with 2 years with Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator, and who gets at least a little bit of credit because he had the historic rookie season that he had, the best rookie season of any Chargers wide receiver in team history. At the same time, like it felt like that was almost purely off the individual efforts of Ladd McConkey and his ability to just get himself open, as opposed to having an offensive coordinator that with jet motions, with deception and things like that, will be able to help him get in space, help him, get that separation that maybe, he just kind of had to do all on his own over the last couple of years. So the fact that he didn't lead this team in targets last year is crazy. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't their wide receiver one in 2026. And he's one of the guys I'm most excited to see in this new offense. But let's get to this one from David XLY, who says, buy or sell, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, and Darius Davis have all played their last snaps as an LA Charger, David. That's three of the Chargers' current wide receivers. Will they be back in 2026?
Yeah, I'm going to sell that. I don't think it's going to be the last snap for all three of them. I do feel like I can definitely see a world in where this is the last time we see Keenan Allen in a Chargers uniform.
He's probably the most likely.
That just seems like the most likely. And honestly, what I said about Ladd and the quick concepts, it applies also probably even more so to Quentin Johnston, which I think, you get the ball in his hands. We all know what he's capable of doing. He's proved it consistently throughout the few years. He's very difficult to bring down. He's a very, very big wide receiver that really turns into a running back in the open field when he has the ball in his hands. He's special in that way, and I don't feel like that it was utilized nearly enough. And I know Mike McDaniel is the type of play caller that will use that because he knows that that's a way to get easy yards, to get those those low cost, high reward type of plays that he said that he wanted to implement in the offense. Quentin Johnston's going to be a direct beneficiary of that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with you. I think the other important thing here is Quentin Johnston and Darius Davis are both still under contract, right? So, like, you'd have to be cutting them or trading them. Would they entertain a trade from Quentin Johnston? I mean, if the right deal came up and if Mike McDaniel wasn't sold on him, maybe. But, like, it feels like this is a guy that Mike McDaniel can use well. And, like, it also feels like this is the first time I have confidence that he has an offensive coordinator that'll try to use him the way that we've always thought he'd be best used. So the bigger thing is if they're going to pick up his fifth-year option or not, because they could have him under contract through the 2027 season if they want to. Darius Davis also under contract, coming off of an injured season. So let's start with that. But not a good season, right? Not an all-pro return man season. And it's been back-to-back where, it's kind of gone downhill ever since his really good rookie year. And a lot of that has been some injuries, but also 7 yards per punt return this year, tied for 48th in the NFL, 25.8 yards per kick return, which is tied for 56th, minimum of 5 kickoff returns. So not special in that regard. That being said, Mike McDaniel loves himself a tiny wide receiver. So if there was ever someone to kind of give him new life and a chance to potentially have an impact on the offense, I wouldn't rule Mike McDaniel out of that because he is a guy that has 4.36 speed, and that he's at least a little intrigued by that. But I think it starts with special teams. that has to be a lot better because that is why he was drafted. That is his main calling card in the NFL. But we still have more to get into because although I'm not into the Tyreek Hill addition, who hasn't had 1,000 yards since 2023, I am into another potential addition at center with the Chargers potentially going after the best center on the market, Tyler Linderbaum. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. And it's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. This is it, guys. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close, which is so sad. But this is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. David, we still have more to get into on this buy or sell show that I didn't think would ever happen with the way the news has been breaking for the Chargers this past week, but we have a lot of good ones to get into, including something we haven't talked about very much, free agency, right? And we will get into that. We'll have our full free agency primer. We'll talk about the biggest needs and things as the season gets over and we start building up towards free agency for the 2026 season. But there's one player that's already on Chargers fans' minds, and that is Tyler Linderbaum, and how can you blame them? I mean, we've seen the center play since Corey Linsley had his kind of abrupt retirement. Nobody wants to see that again, especially Athir.
Daniel, David, Athir buy or sell Tuesday and overreaction. GM Joe Hortiz, Tyler Linderbaum should be the number one target on the free agency. You cannot get outbid and lose this guy. I'm not going to say it. You give me the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Athir. As always, I think this is a common sentiment. I think if you're talking about external free agents, it's hard to say that he's not number one out there, David, because he feels like a pretty sure thing as far as centers go. He's been good in all 4 seasons he's been in the league. And if he makes it to free agency, I think he absolutely has to be atop the Chargers list.
100%. The only problem is he's going to be at the top of a lot of teams' lists.
Including the Ravens.
Including the Ravens, for sure. But the thing is the Chargers, they're going to have plenty of money, and they make a couple of moves. They got over $100+ million. So if it comes to a bidding war, they can make it happen if they want to, and I absolutely 1,000% endorse that they do. The last time the Chargers had a great center, as you mentioned, was Corey Linsley, and it was unbelievably clear how much of a difference maker he is as a force multiplier, not only controlling the middle of that offensive line, but making everyone around you that much better. And obviously, I'm not saying he's Corey Linsley, but at 25 years old, this guy has been fantastic, extremely durable, has only missed 2 games in 4 seasons. Also, he's ranked as the 5th highest graded center in the NFL in 2025 and has improved his PFF grade every single season. He's also a phenomenal run blocker. 3 seasons of run block grades in the 80s, which is fantastic. And oh, by the way, he's no slouch as a pass protector either. Only 5 sacks and 83 pressures allowed in 2,244 pass blocking snaps across 4 seasons. This guy is the real deal. He's going to get paid a boatload of money, and it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of 18 to 20 million per season.
Yeah, I think that's the 18 is the number, to look for, because that is right now what Creed Humphrey makes as the top center in the league. And although Creed Humphrey is the best center in the league, it doesn't really matter when it comes to this kind of conversation or this kind of equation. Like, if you're getting a top 5 center in the market, you're going to have to pay him top of the market money and have to be ready for that. Now, they have the money to do it, but the money's going to start going, right? Like, you're already paying now Tier Tart $30 million over 3 years. So even starting at 80, we can already basically borderline take 10 off of that, right? And they still have ways that cutting Bradley Bozeman to make more money, but still, there's only so many deals you can give up. That being said, Joe Ortiz has done pretty well in free agency with the small kind of low risk deals, especially on defense. But at some point, he's going to have to go get more aggressive and just bring in a really quality player. And I know Butch Berry's done a good job of maximizing what he has, but this feels like someone that's like, hey, just go get this. You can kind of, cut some corners maybe elsewhere, but at least you have the center of that offensive line figured out for the foreseeable future. And I think that has to be super appealing to a team that hasn't been able to get it right in the Jim Harbaugh era so far. But let's get to this next one here from Taz Phillips, who says, Joe Ortiz will make a trade with the Miami Dolphins for center Aaron Brewer to help their salary issues. I would love this. Aaron Brewer is a monster. And not only that, he played so well under Butch Berry, the Chargers' new offensive line coach, who, is definitely, in my opinion, gets a decent amount of the credit for the turnaround that he's had in Miami. But more than that, he fits perfectly, right? Like, he fits exactly in this offense. You know exactly what he brings to the table as the best run blocking center in all of football last season, one of the top rated in general. But also, Jeff Hafley, very unlikely to get rid of a really good offensive lineman, especially while they kept Bobby Slowick from the Shanahan tree to continue running their offense. So I love the thought of it. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, and also, there just really isn't any financial benefit for them to do so either. I mean, the thing is they're well over the cap, about $22 million over the cap, but
and per over the cap, it's $30 million. So
yeah,
take that
so
for,
even 22 to 30 million, they're considerably over the cap. So they're going to have to make some moves, but if they were to make this move before the new league year, they're going to eat $7.5 million, and they're only going to save $1.5 million, and that just doesn't make any sort of business sense whatsoever. Also, the Chargers only have 5 picks in the 2026 draft. They sent their 5th round pick for Odafe Owe, and they sent their 7th round pick in 2024 for Elijah Molden. So they only have 5 picks to work with. As much as I would love it, it just doesn't seem like a deal that would make any type of sense for a new coaching staff to ship out one of the best offensive linemen in the league. It's just a pipe bomb.
Yeah, 100%. Pipe dream.
Pipe dream, yeah.
Pipe bomb,
pipe
a little
dream,
bit,
yeah.
a little different. But yeah, no, it just doesn't make sense. We talk about it all the time when talking about trade targets and stuff like that. Teams don't trade good offensive linemen. You can count him in that list of guys that was unlikely to get traded. But this is a really interesting buy or sell that we have here next from Admiral Insulin, who says, buy or sell, Zion Johnson is more likely to return with Butch Berry hired as the O-line coach. David, what do you think?
I don't know if it makes it any more likely to me that he stays, because there's not really any connection between Zion and Butch Berry. So, I think that's one of the things you look at a lot when you're trying to see, okay, well, is there any kind of relationship or connection? Not really. And I think Zion's been the most stable offensive lineman that the Chargers have had. He's another guy that's only missed 2 games in the last 4 seasons, but he's only been okay. Like, I think we have to be honest about what he has been and how he has performed with the Chargers. Just because he's the best of a really, really bad group that was out there doesn't mean that he was good. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind. I don't know if it makes it any more likely. I do feel like the Chargers will probably try to keep him and bring him back, just because he is the type of player that they like, smart, tough, a guy that's there every day. So yeah, I feel like, the Chargers will bring him back, but I don't think the addition of Butch Berry makes it any more likely.
Yeah, I agree with this. I would sell that it makes it more likely. What I would say is that he's also, outside of Justin Herbert, probably the guy that Jim Harbaugh compliments the most on this entire team, right? Like, you hear Jim Harbaugh talk about Zion Johnson, you'd think he's a Hall of Fame player, right? When he hasn't been. And to your point, like, even in his best season, is pretty middle of the pack amongst, other guards in the league. So, I think he's solid. If you bring back Zion Johnson and then upgrading the other 2 spots on the line, that's you can work with that, right? And it'd still be a massive improvement, and he's going to be out there, right? But at the same time, like, if he's going to still get more than you probably think he's going to get. He's a serviceable guard who's a former first-round pick, and those pre-draft, convictions definitely still play a factor even this far into his career. But I do also expect Bozeman and Beckham to be gone. So, like, do they try to bring back a familiar guy because Jim Harbaugh likes him so much? They could, but like you'd be spending a good chunk of your free agent purse on it. And also, I feel like it would make it a lot harder to try to still go and target someone like a Tyler Linderbaum or to spend big on somebody else if you're going to be given $15-16 million potentially. I mean, look what Aaron Banks made last year, right? Close to $20 million a season. And he wasn't even that good. I don't know. I don't know if you can really pay him as much as he's probably going to get paid for what the play is you've gotten so far. But we still have more to get into because there's a lot of Mike McDaniel buy or sells, including if it will be a one and done year for the hot offensive coordinator. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I'm the Chargers, I'm using Indeed and a sponsored job post to put it right in front of Tyler Linderbaum's face. I need that right to the top. I can't have it getting lost in the wash of all the other job posts. I need it seen by the right candidates right away. So instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored job helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. And boy, do we know the Chargers need quality candidates on that offensive line. But according to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. And listeners to this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. So just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about it. Heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. David, we still have some buy or sells to get into, and I want to thank all the everydayers for being patient with us as the news continued to break this week, and we had to keep pushing the show further and further into the week, but glad that we get to get your guys' voices on today's show, literally, and with all the posts that you guys flooded us with through all of our social media. So thank you all for that. And we had a ton of Mike McDaniel posts and buy or sells, including a good one here from the Maxwell 23, which I think is on a lot of people's minds. And it's as simple as this: buy or sell, Mike McDaniel will go one and done. David, are you buying or selling that?
I'm going to buy it. And the reason why I'm going to buy it is because I think he is going to construct and orchestrate the most dangerous offense in the National Football League. I feel like, it's going to be something that the Chargers have not seen since the LT 06-07 type days. I feel like, with Justin Herbert, his arm strength, with the running situation, the concepts that he's bringing in, with the quick game that they're going to, implement, with the tackles that they have coming back. I feel like all of that, all combined with the schematic evil genius of Mike McDaniel and the head coaching prowess of Jim Harbaugh, I think that's going to be a magical marriage, and this offense is going to take off. It's going to be so good, you're going to want more of it, but unfortunately, it's going to be one and done.
Yeah, like I would buy it right now if I had to, obviously not knowing what the season is going to, how it's going to unfold. But yeah, that is just because of the faith I have that this offense is going to be really good. And like, he already had a fair amount of interest. Whether or not he would have got offered a head coaching job is probably arguable, but like, we know he got interest. We know he was interviewing for jobs. And I think we've also seen, like, with guys like Kevin Stefanski and other teams could overlook kind of the transgressions in Miami and just kind of write it off as Miami's just kind of a dumpster fire organization. Probably not much Mike McDaniel could do there to have a lot of success, right? I think the other thing that plays against the Chargers is the fact that he's an offensive-minded head coach. And it's something the Chargers are going to, if he does do well, we'll be dealing with, right? You get the offensive-minded head coach, you don't have to worry about him getting poached by other teams every offseason because you have the guy in place. They might try to take your offensive coordinator. They might try to take your passing game coordinator, your quarterback coach. But you have the guy. You have the play caller. You have the Andy Reid standing on your sideline, right? So you don't have to worry about it. That helps your case a ton, right? The other part of it is I think going into 2026, there are a couple really, interesting options like a Tampa Bay or Cincinnati. If they both miss the playoffs again next year, that could open up. What if, God forbid, Andy Reid retires with the Chiefs, right? I don't want to see Mike McDaniel with the Chiefs at all, but I also don't want Andy Reid to keep coaching Patrick Mahomes. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. But yeah, I think most likely scenario right now, I think it's over a 50% chance he would get hired by someone else just because, Nate Shieldhouse is a passing game coordinator who was looking at being a head coach this year potentially. So an actual head coach with head coaching experience. We know the offense works. Yeah, this is going to be a hot candidate again, especially if the Chargers offense does what we think they'll do this year. Let's get to this one from Phil Antonopoulos, who says, do you think there's a chance that McDaniel may be the head coach in waiting? And I think the reason I sell this and the problem I always have with this, David, is just how long do you guys think Jim Harbaugh is going to coach? Do you think he's only going to coach one more year? We heard his dad tell him the advice, right? And it was this: coach until you absolutely just can't coach anymore, and then coach for 2 more years, right? That's what he told us. So I think that's my biggest thing. I don't think Mike McDaniel is going to be one to wait around, but I also don't think Jim Harbaugh is planning on going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, hey, Mike McDaniel is definitely a head coach in waiting. It's just not waiting for the Chargers. Okay? And I agree with that completely. I'm just do you guys feel like Jim Harbaugh is going anywhere? He's not. He has a mission that he wants to accomplish. The last thing that he wants to do before he stops coaching, and it's very clear. He made it abundantly clear at his introductory press conference, that's to win a Super Bowl championship. And not just one, he wants to win multiple of them. So that's just not something that he wants to relinquish on. He is fully focused on that. He wants to attain that. And I don't think he's going anywhere until he is able to accomplish that mission. I love Mike McDaniel. I love everything that he's going to bring to the Chargers. And he's going to be a head coach for sure. It's just probably not going to be for this team.
Agree with that. Yeah, the thing is, it sucks because he could have a great season and we could talk ourselves into this, right? Where it's maybe you just keep Mike McDaniel, around as a head coach. They're always going to be good offensively, but you brought Jim Harbaugh in for a reason, and that was, to build a consistent winner. And I know people, say, well, look what happened with the Ravens and moving on from Mike McDaniel. John Harbaugh was there for 18 years. It's so much different than Jim Harbaugh going into year 3 with the Chargers, going for a chance to one-up his brother by having a Super Bowl and also having a college national championship. So I don't see any way that he would go. It makes no sense for the Chargers with what they're paying Jim Harbaugh to let him go to try to keep someone else who may or may not be a head coach. And in Mike McDaniel's, scenario specifically, failed recently as a head coach, right? And we'll have at least 1 year under Jim Harbaugh to try to figure the rest of it out. But, I've seen a lot of this. We also had Eric Mendoza saying, buy or sell the Chargers, promote Mike McDaniel to assistant head coach next season and trying to keep him around in order to retain him and keep our offense relevant. There's no position they can give him at this point that's going to keep him from being a head coach next year if that's what he wants to do. He failed being a head coach and he got fired. How much of that was his fault is obviously can be parsed. But that's what he wants, and he told us it, right, at his press conference. That's the mountaintop he's trying to get to the top of. But let's do one more here from JD on YouTube, who says, buy or sell Chris O'Leary named defensive coordinator. The buy or sell curse is real for you guys, which is so true. It happened all week. Buy or sell, having a play caller with some experience is the right move, even if we lose out on our great DB coach, Steve Clinkscale. Bolt up, boys. Dave, this is a tough one. What did you think?
Yeah, it's not that Steve Clinkscale doesn't have defensive coordinator experience, because he does. It's just not recent defensive coordinator play calling experience. It was a long time ago. We're talking 2015, the last time that he was an acting defensive coordinator in the college ranks. And Chris O'Leary was the defensive coordinator just last year in a system that was very similar to the system that the Chargers are running right now. So I think that is so important, and it has to be, factored into this equation. It's the mixture of all of those things, but it's just that Chris O'Leary knows the system, implemented the system, had unbelievable amounts of success in a very, very short period of time in that system, and now he's going to be taking that to be the defensive coordinator for the Chargers.
Well, the thing is, it's still an if at this point with Steve Clinkscale, right? We don't know for certain that he's leaving at this point. I would feel pretty jilted if I was him, just being honest, right? Taking the team hat off. He probably wanted to be the Chargers defense coordinator and didn't get it. And that's probably making him feel salty. He could have a chance to be a defensive coordinator with Jesse Minter in Baltimore potentially, right? But again, like having a great, like the reason we were worried about Jesse Minter getting replaced is because of his ability as a play caller. And like Steve Klingscale might be able to coach him up with the best of them. You don't know how good you are as a play caller at that point, right? And even with Chris O'Leary, you're taking a huge risk. The guy has 1 season of defensive coordinator experience at a group of 5, group of 6 school, right? Like that's not a ton either, but they're telling you who they think the better defensive coordinator is. And a defensive coordinator, pretty much no matter how good of a position coach you are, is going to be more important than your defensive backs coach. And it's pretty much as simple as that. So I hope they keep Klink. I think he's an excellent coach and has done wonders with the cornerbacks that they have there. And I don't think that's by accident at all. But yeah, I think that by going with Chris O'Leary, more than likely that you have a chance to lose Steve Klingscale. And they're basically telling you they might be okay with that. And I'm going to trust Jim Harbaugh's judgment on who should be the defensive coordinator for this team because his track record with defensive coordinators is impeccable in recent history. So I'm going to, follow their lead on this one, especially because you're talking about a guy who does have play calling experience last season to, go off of, even if it was at the collegiate level. But yeah, I'm excited for Chris O'Leary. Like they must see something special in him. Like they saw something special in Jesse Minter, like he saw something special in Mike McDaniel once upon a time. But that is going to wrap things up for today's show. The good news is I'm sure we'll probably get some more news over the weekend. Probably going to hear from Chris O'Leary at his first press conference soon. And there's only one Daily Chargers podcast to keep bringing you the latest news every single day. And to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show on all of our social media at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page, which is where pretty much all of our buy or sells came from today. And also our voicemail line at 323-524-7924 if you want to get your 30-second Chargers voicemail on the show. Thank you, Athir. Thank you to everybody. And if you guys love the show and want a little bit more, you can always hit up the Locked On Every Day Your Club now, something new we have going on to get an ad-free audio version of this podcast for $5 a month, plus exclusive access to the Locked On Chargers Discord channel, which we're building here slowly and have a pretty fun situation going on over there. But you know what it is. We'll be back with you guys on Monday with the latest news. Will we see some hirings? Will we see a shakeup on this coaching staff now that both coordinators are in place? Make sure you're back on Monday to find out. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.